So in this episode, I'm joined by Ian Dunsford. We're going to cover off health and safety culture. It's a big buzzword, has been for a few years. So we're going to dive in to look at what's the good, the bad, what should you be trying to achieve, topic areas, things to be looking for, and how to improve it. So Ian, health and safety culture, big topic. What sort of things are we going to be covering? What's the angle that we should be taking?
So, John, what we're going to look at is how businesses behave to improve how things are done around here. That's essentially what culture means, how we do things around here. So looking at how they can communicate, how they listen to their staff, take on everybody's views to improve safety.
I think, yeah, absolutely. I think that's really good, the idea that we're thinking about how we do things around here, really important. I often describe it, what's the feeling we leave behind is one we talk about within the business. It's how do you make people feel empowered, I suppose, and the approach. And I suppose how do you drill into that? What sort of things are we looking for? The difference between, I suppose, to say a customer who says they want to do it versus the ones that are actually improving, isn't it? And wanting to improve is they're two different animals.
So I think a customer who says they want to do it are quite often already on the back foot. They're being reactive. They might have had a HSE visit. They may have had an accident, and as a safety professional going into work with those businesses, quite often you find that they just want a quick fix. They just want to, look at the machine that's hurt the person and see how it can be made safer and not cause too much problem to production. Whereas a company who want you to be there are looking to improve their processes and make them more efficient whilst improving safety outcomes for all of their staff, or maybe the people who come to visit them.
Yeah, I suppose it comes down to that idea, doesn't it, of a blame culture, I suppose, at its worst, at the worst end of that stick. It's businesses that are in the, you didn't do that, as opposed to, well, why didn't they do that?
Yeah, and absolutely, and that's what we see when we look at managers' attitudes or supervisors' attitudes.
Yep.
If somebody does something wrong on the shop floor, for example, let's say they fail to wear their hearing protection. If it's a reactive business, they're quite looking to just go over there and say, John, you haven't got your hearing protection in. I've told you 10 times you need to put your hearing protection in. That might lead to disciplinary action being taken.
Yep.
Whereas a business who's got a more rounded health and safety culture, or are moving towards having a sort of independent culture, are actually saying, okay, John, why haven't you got your hearing protection in? Is there a problem with it? Is it that it doesn't fit? Is it that we've given you some hearing protection, but you've also got to wear a hard hat, and the hearing protection doesn't fit over the hat? It's incompatible. I know we're not talking about PPE, but they're the sort of things, and they're more willing to explore the reasons rather than just give you a kick in for not doing what's right.
Yeah, it's that consultative approach, I guess, isn't it? How do you, I suppose we're into sort of nudge theory though, aren't we, a little bit? Because when we're working with customers, we'll have a range.
Yeah.
You and I know we'll have customers that come to us who are starting from the position of perhaps having nothing in place.
Absolutely.
Some of them will be saying the classic, I just want to do the legal minimum, which is a moving target, as we know.
Yeah.
Some of them will think they're doing a lot already, and you're moving into that they know what they don't know, as opposed to they don't know what they don't know. We're moving through those gears, and then you have the others who are doing a pretty good job at understanding how they move to becoming a safety culture-led business as opposed to a rules-led business.
Yeah.
How do you go about nudging businesses that are at the bottom of that scale to move them up towards the top, I suppose, is the thing?
So I think that what you need to do is you do need to start with getting people up to the basic legal standard. So looking at the gaps in their businesses, whether that be in terms of, have they got a health and safety policy? Have they got risk assessments? Have they got processes in place to report accidents? Moving them through to then understanding, well, actually, why do they need to have these? What are ostensibly pieces of paper? And, for example, risk assessments, in telling them, actually, this risk assessment isn't just a bit of paper to hide behind. It's not a shield. It's a management tool for you to look at each steps of the process, see how the people can be harmed, and what we can do to protect those people, and put those in place. And then that all can come round into helping the supervisors to manage the shop floor workers to ensure that they're doing things safely, but also understanding why those control measures are in place.
You're trying to. I often liken it to the idea of you're winding up the watch and you're trying to make them autonomous. It's this idea of if you can empower these employees to understand, then you are taking them on that journey with you.
Yeah, because the other thing as well, if they understand why something is being done like that, it makes them. They can also understand when things might not be right. Yeah, quite often where we've got a reactive business, and when we talk to staff who work for a reactive business, or maybe it's not a reactive business, maybe it's just a company who's engaged us and we're in the early days of working with that company. Sometimes they feel like the rules are being imposed from the top down, and quite often we hear people say, well, we've had all these safety procedures, they've all been written by someone who's never done the job. So what we try and encourage, and that may well be true.
Valid point, yeah.
So what we try and encourage then is worker involvement. So, for instance, setting up things like safety circles or small working projects to look at an area. Let's say it's a yard in a builder's merchant. Getting the yard staff involved, along with the manager, with the yard supervisor, to look at, well, where are the pinch points in this yard? Where have we got too much stock? And getting them involved in that risk assessment process. And the benefit of that is that, in some respects, just being involved in that risk assessment process is almost like training, because you don't need to tell the staff, well, we've got these hazards here, we've got a slope here, and there's a risk of forklift trucks overturning. They've identified that themselves by going through that risk assessment process, so they're self-aware, if that makes sense, of the hazards.
That's the movement you want, isn't it? Over that 6-month period, you want the first 6 months of working with a client.
And and because they're self-aware and because they've been involved in that process, they will take ownership, and because they've helped to set the control measures, what we find is they're actually more likely to follow the control measures.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You're letting them become the rule maker, if you like, and set out the goal.
And also because they've got that ownership. Look, we know that risk assessment is an ongoing process. That's what we review risk assessments, because they're not done on day one. We might review them after a year, or if things aren't going right. And because the staff have been involved in that process, then they're more likely to highlight when it's not going right and help make the changes to review that risk assessment or those safe systems of work.
And I think you've hit on a good indicator there, I think, is this idea that people who are working in a business that is more safety culture orientated are probably, and I'll be guided by you, but are more likely to call out problems, because they're not in a fearful, we need a scapegoat when an accident happens or an incident happens. They're more likely to understand that or expect that they're going to be listened to.
Yeah, and one of the things that we do and we see with businesses who are improving their safety culture is on the reporting side of it. So a reactive business might just record accidents, whereas a business that's improving their safety culture is moving towards reporting near misses or safety obversations.
Yes.
So do we want to talk about some of
I think
the definitions?
Really important there.
For me,
good.
If
first of all, I hate the word accidents.
Okay.
Because
I won't use it again.
Yeah, okay. I always get told off. So for me, a lot of the time, an accident is something that was unforeseen.
Yes.
A lot of the time, as we know, foreseen.
Correct.
But we're never going to get away from that. But so we're talking about incidents without injury and incidents with injury a lot of the time, aren't we?
If we've got an incident with injury, which... accident.
Let's call it accident, because we've got an accident book in the HSE. I understand accidents.
Yeah. So if I'm in if I'm doing some training, for example, and I trip up over the trailing cable and I twist my ankle, that's an accident or an incident with injury. If I trip up over the cable and go, I've just tripped up over a cable. That was unfortunate. Then that's a near miss. Whereas if I go into the training room and I see the trailing cable and go, that's not right, then that's a safety observation. And the businesses who are more mature in their safety cultures,
aware,
they're moving towards reporting more of these safety observations. I mean, think about it like a goalkeeper in football. Okay, it's not about counting how many goals the goalie's let in. It's about counting how many times the goalie saved the ball.
Yeah. Or saves on target.
Yes,
you know, the saves on target. There's a number of different things, aren't there?
Exactly. And I think with businesses as well, there is a bit of a fear because some of their key performance indicators may be looking at accident statistics. And again, that's a reactive thing. Yeah. It's a lagging. It's what we call a lagging KPI, key performance indicator. So we're looking at what's happened in the past. Whereas if more, again, as we work with businesses and we work with them to try and set key performance indicators that are both sort of lagging, things that have already happened, that have already gone wrong, and more sort of leading ones, we work with them to look at recording safety observations. And so by doing so, we're looking at how many times have they spotted an opportunity for something not to go wrong.
How good are your employees at doing that, and how is it encouraged, etc.?
Well, it's a lot of it's encouraged by leading by example. Yeah. So if a manager or a director's walking through the shop floor and they see things that aren't right, then, like, I don't know, a forklift truck parked over a walkway, you know, it's not hit anyone, no one's been nearly hit by it, but it's a safety observation, it shouldn't be there. So how many times are the directors or the senior managers, how many times are they actually walking past that, or how many times are they challenging why that's there? And again, talking about a mature culture, that challenge isn't going to be, John, why have you left that there? I've told you 10 times you shouldn't leave that there. It's going to be, okay, why have you felt you need to leave that there? Well, it's because I need to charge it, and the forklift charges here. It's right next to the walkway. Whereas if we had a dedicated place to charge that forklift, I wouldn't need to park it there. So it's about developing those soft skills, I suppose, investigatory skills to find out why aren't things being done the way they should be, and more importantly, what can we do as an organisation? How can we improve the system to improve safety for the individuals?
Yeah, and you'll start then getting into those marginal gains then, won't you?
Yes.
The old Dale Brailsford and the England GB cycling team. It's that idea, okay, well, let's
the 1%,
start
make it better 1% at a time.
Yeah, and trying to prove through those things. In terms of the measurement of that then, how have we gone about measuring safety culture? Someone starts from scratch, well, what is the safety culture in my business? Do we need a metric for it? Is it worth, where do you start?
So there's a number of different metrics, and I think the most commonly used metric is the Bradley curve, where you work with a business who might be reactive to start with, and they're sort of on the left of the curve, and they are sort of very much a rules-based business. They're a business that treats non-compliance as almost infringements, and people are punished for not complying. Moving through the different stages where they might be dependent, where, okay, they've set some sensible rules, but they're dependent on those, and the staff are rigid to those rules and are not thinking about ways to improve safety. Moving through into the other stages, which are sort of like independent and interdependent. And interdependent is where you really want to be, because that's the
you're in trust then, aren't you?
You're in trust mode, but also you're looking out for each other. So the person who works in production may see something that's not right in the office, and previously, if you've got a health and safety culture that's immature, they might just ignore it. It's not my problem. I don't care about what happens in the office. Whereas if they're interdependent, they will report issues.
Yeah, that's your gold standard, isn't it? Where absolutely. People are thinking around the safety of everybody, a collective approach.
Yeah,
really.
Absolutely. And that's what we want to move That's what we want to move towards. And again, that is a measure sort of on the Bradley curve, and we can actually measure that through a number of different ways. So we can go to a business and we could do a gap analysis, and we could look at the physical conditions of the business. What are slips and trips like? How are staff wearing the PPE? Is machinery guarded?
And there's interesting examples around that, aren't there? You're asking the employee, why are you wearing the PPE?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So why are you not wearing the PPE? Why are you actually using that saw and you're not setting the guard? And it might be, well, actually, I need to saw this metal, and we haven't got a machine that's big enough to take the size of metal that we want the guard that we want to put through it. So then you then look and work with the business to say, well, okay, what can we do? Can we adjust this machine to make it do what you want to do?
Or was there a method for him to report that?
Yeah. Well, yes, of course.
Create those routes. I suppose that's your interdependence, isn't it?
Yeah, and I go to businesses and they'll say, oh, well, I've told the manager about this blade that doesn't stop, and nothing gets done about it. And they don't
tell you about something else.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's no point.
A dead end.
I've told John about this 10 times, and nothing ever gets done. So I'm not going to bother. I'm not going to bother telling about the potholes either. Yeah, because nothing will ever happen.
Yeah. I suppose it's that. It's moving them to that.
Also
part of that Bradley curve, there's some questions, aren't there, around asking people, well, why do you wear PPE?
Yeah.
If people are saying to you, because the boss says we've got to, they're further down that curve.
Safety's imposed, and again when they say because the boss says they've got to, you may be able to draw an inference that if the boss isn't there, such as on a night shift, they're not going to do what's supposed to be done. So
they're in dependent mode. They're dependent on supervision then at that
stage.
They
are dependent on supervision.
I think that's why the stage is called dependent. But
so we want to make them independent.
To move up a notch.
When we have got early morning shifts or night shifts or weekend work where we've got fewer supervisors perhaps around, that staff feel that actually they want to follow the rules because they appreciate that, well, actually, if I follow the rules, I'm going to go home with all my fingers, or my friends aren't going to get hurt.
It's getting them to understand that there's a valid reason behind these controls and that they buy into it. It's that buy-in piece, isn't it, around where you get to. It's in terms of that element you touched on sort of shift work as well there, which is something I've talked about in other episodes. It's how you then, the thread that runs through the business, isn't it? That back to how we do things around here relates to, we all want to go home at night and we all want to actually slowly improve our working conditions and make sure that work has a less impact on our life. Yeah,
because again, there's a massive business case as well for having a good safety culture, because if people are operating safer, if they are looking out for each other, then production's going to be faster. If they're reporting problems, machinery isn't likely to break down because you've got an opportunity to fix a machine as soon as a first funny squeak is heard, before that funny squeak becomes a bearing that's burning out, or a motor that's burning out, and a machine's down for a week because the part that you need for the machine is on a ship coming from Germany.
Absolutely, those are the knock-on effects, aren't they? It's back to this: safety's not something to do on a Wednesday. It should be running through the business as part of improved practice, much like quality and environmental standards. That's the approach. In terms of that journey, then, if a customer says, "Okay, look, I want to improve safety culture," we start perhaps by taking a reading now, a barometer of okay, where do we think we are now? I suppose, what are the steps that they should be taking? What are the starting nudges to get the boat moving?
So I suppose what we need to do is we need to find out what our baseline is. We need to look at the physical conditions of the site, but we also need to speak with staff. So you can do that by using interviews. Sit down with staff, ask them questions. So I've sat down with staff, and you tend to ask a mixture of questions. You might ask questions that are like, on a scale of 1 to 5, how much do you agree with this statement? And the statement might be that management are supportive of health and safety. Or you might ask more open-ended questions about, well, what would you do if you found a problem in your workplace? And you can look at the responses to those questions, and you can you can sort of almost measure the responses against the Bradley curve. So then you would come out with a score at the end.
Okay, so qualitative score.
Yeah, qualitative score along with the findings from any gap analysis. And you could then maybe revisit that. Well, so you give the client some recommendations as to what they might need to do to improve, and then agree to come back in maybe 6 months, a year's time, and have similar conversations again with the staff. And hopefully we'll see that, you know, some of the staff who felt that, well, I never report anything because nothing ever gets done, they're now saying, yeah, I'm happy to report stuff because we know things get done. We know that managers will have a production meeting where they will discuss the issues that have been raised. We know that it's not only managers, we have a safety circle where I sit on that, or my colleague sits on that, and we discuss the problems that we're finding. We discuss the solutions or the suggestions that we have to improve our processes and our risk assessments. So hopefully we'll see that when we revisit. We might also see better use of PPE, for example, or better guarding on machinery. And hopefully as a result of those sort of second visits, and hopefully it's an ongoing process, but those later visits, we'll see an improvement in the score, and they'll be moving along the curve into the interdependent.
And what sort of tools will we be recommending? You know, are we recommending probably training for employees, or guiding them through the processes, or, you know, how do we actually start to improve in terms of physical actions taken?
So I think in terms of the tools, I think if we're looking at being proactive, we do need training. You're absolutely correct. If people aren't aware of what the hazards and the risks are and what the control measures are that have been set in place, it's very difficult for them to implement them and to operate safely. But also we need to recommend robust reporting tools so that staff can quickly, with hardly any friction. People say, yeah, they're all busy. You know, they don't want to spend minutes reporting incidents. They want to be able to do it in seconds. So really quick reporting facilities, things that are online, things where they can just, you know, if they're able to have their phone on the shop floor, or if there's a PC somewhere in the corner, where they can quickly log an incident that goes to their manager or the safety manager, and they can then address that. But also there needs to be a feedback loop as well. One of the issues that we see with businesses who maybe haven't got such a great health and safety culture, or maybe at the start, maybe they're in the sort of dependent stage, is that they've got those reporting facilities, but they're not feeding back to the staff.
They're not illustrating the journey.
Yeah, we need a sort of you said we did sort of approach to managing safely.
Yeah, you're always going to get more buy-in when people know that actually what they're doing, if they're doing that it's actually having an impact on a day-to-day basis, isn't it? And driving them on that journey. Well, good. Okay. Well, yeah, lots covered there.
Yeah.
Interesting to see how we keep improving what businesses are doing. So thank you, Ian. Good session, and hopefully we'll see you again.
Thank you.